Everyone. Okay, I hope you're all settled with Zoom. So, yeah, so I'm Michelle Pressend, and I
This meeting
am
is being
the
recorded.
academic coordinator of TRAJECTS in South Africa of the African Hub at the University of Cape Town. And today we're going to speak about the controversies of nature-based solutions. So the way we're going to proceed is that our speakers from the Latin American side and the the African continent side will introduce themselves, and I will give just a short context of the conversation, and then each speaker is going to present their input on this topic. So um, I suppose other than myself being the coordinator of TRAJECTS, my academic interest is very much around decolonial and relational perspective to addressing the poly crisis. And I did we had a Zoom call, so I'm putting my um, context or view out that I feel a bit uneasy with the concept nature-based solutions. So I'm just letting you know, and so I'll be a bit troublesome with maybe some of my questions and responses. So I'm going to hand over to Claire.
Thank you very much, Michelle. My name is Claire Anulisa Adhiambo Okinyi. I come from the beautiful country of Kenya in Africa, and I am a researcher with CIFOR-ICRAF. We doing different projects in different countries. So currently I am engaged with the TREPA project. It's TREPA Rwanda, transforming Eastern Province through adaptation. That is in Rwanda. We also have the GTCI, the Green Tree Commodities Initiative. We also have EBA Gambia, ecosystem-based adaptation in the Gambia. I'm just mentioning those that are currently involved in. I'm also part of the Africa Future Climate Centers. So AFAS is the name of, just like TRAJECTS, that is the Africa Climate Environment Center, Future African Savannas. And it's also one of the global centers for climate and environment under the DAD. They are working to preserve and protect the fragile environments of the West and African savannas against the combined threats of extensive and diverse land use and climate change challenges. It links the science policy and practice interfaced in the nature-based solutions for climate change adaptation and biodiversity conservation. So in a nutshell, that's my name, my country, and what I do. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. That's good.
Okay. My name is Andrés Osorio. I am professor in the National University of Colombia, and also I'm the executive director of the CEMARIN. This is in a Center of Excellence in Marine Science. This is a Colombian German center and it's integrated by several universities here in Colombia and also in Germany. And my background is I am engineered, but I did my master and PhD in marine science and technology. And so that is mean that I was involved in marine science, in marine topics. But in the last 10, 15 years more or less, I started the interaction between the physical process, oceanography, and also connected with the another disciplines like ecology, biology, economy, sociology, and those will be more complex discussions when you are thinking that solutions for the territories or maritories, that's maritories that we see in Colombia, that is sea land or something like this, you know. Yeah, that is my background, and this is my interest in general. And I will be more than happy in the TRAJECTS, in the discussion for the transitions. It's a complex part. I will be more than happy just to share this table together. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Michela Izzo. I'm from the Dominican Republic, and I'm the executive director of Guakía Ambiente. That is a non-governmental organization of the Dominican Republic. And we work in a tight alliance with the Small Grants Program of the Global Environment Facility. As a matter of fact, Alberto Sanchez, who is the national coordinator of the SGP in the country, is accompanying me because we work together with a common philosophy in terms of community interventions. Basically, well, the name Guakía is a Taino word, which means we, nosotros in Spanish. And basically, the idea that moves our work is try to conciliate the human society with the environment. So we as part of nature, and that's the way we try to act at ground level, and we accompany local communities in the development of sustainable livelihoods with an environmental focus. So basically, I'm really grateful to TRAJECTS and University of Magdalena for the opportunity to share in this environment, because we think that the concept of collective intelligence is the only way we as human beings have to try to find a solution to the environmental crisis we are living. And so basically, we has another line of action which accompany our work with local communities. We work at research from environmental research, specifically vulnerability studies, in order to support with objective information our work and to make it more effective. And so basically, we are really happy to have the opportunity to share our experience today. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Glynis Humphrey. I'm from the African Climate Development Initiative at the University of Cape Town in South Africa. I'm a postdoctoral research fellow there. I come from a background of, well, my first university was the bush, so savanna and grasslands. I worked as a youngster, learning about natural systems, but also integrating with people, different cultural groups. And I really developed an interest in people and the environment. And it was at a later stage that I started studying, and I continued with an interest in social ecological systems, but focusing on fire management. And so bringing together local indigenous knowledge and how people understand the environment, how they use it, but also together with national governance. So incorporating more of a contemporary understanding of fire to try and address issues on the ground. So I've worked in several Southern African countries, mostly in Namibia, Botswana, Tanzania, and Madagascar, but all involving local communities. So that's where my interest lies. And I'm quite excited to be here. I will introduce my project. Basically, I'm working on a project called Towards Equitable and Sustainable Nature-Based Solutions, which is an interdisciplinary project involving several other scientists. I'm particularly focusing on the social aspect to understand how people benefit or disbenefit from these nature-based solution interventions in these ecosystems. In order to understand the opportunities, but also to untie the challenges and bring that to the fore. So I look forward to sharing that with you. And also it's a very exciting space because it's not often you get the opportunity. I was just saying to someone in the audience, it's not often you get the opportunity to talk about the hard, the really difficult, the controversial side of what actually happens on the ground, particularly with communities. And as a researcher, you know, it's actually, you have a lot of responsibility because you interact with people from the field, and then you have the responsibility of communicating that information in a summarized way back to where it counts. So yeah, so I look forward to engaging with stories on this. Okay, all right. There we go.
Thank you all for your introductions. So Camila was telling me we don't have much time, so I have a 5-minute input. So I'm gonna and each of our speakers are going to speak for 7 minutes. So this is this was happening in this kind of institutional spaces. Like it's a linear time. So I just want to I guess share the definition of nature-based solutions as it has come out of the IUCN, the International Union of Conservation. And they say nature-based solutions leverage nature and power of healthy ecosystems to protect people, optimize infrastructure, and safeguard stable, biodiverse futures. Yeah, so I heard about this term from a colleague from the World Wildlife Fund, and I was wondering what this is. And so I looked it up, and I guess here's some of my troubles. Is that firstly, I find the relationship this explanation very utilitarian way of thinking of nature. So again, this kind of use of nature for the human enterprise, really. It's because this kind of work also from sustainable development way back in the 1970s and 80s have not resulted in ways that improve people's well-being materially. And the second concerns I have about this, it's part of the kind of constant valorization of things, and it's a very Western modernity's way and a sort of scientific reductionist rational way of seeing things. So things to be valorized, to be used for human development, but we must always remember not all humans, only certain humans, those who can afford things and pay for things. So, and I feel that this concept really, I don't know, ignores, overlooks many people from around the world who have been living a life of understanding human integration with nature in harmonious ways. And we had our discussion before with Wangui and Eduardo, yes, speaking about these relationships of nature that's more intrinsic, and it's not this kind of separation of nature and society. So to work with this concept, many of you are working on various projects, and which you're going to share now. And I'm also wondering about the terms of community, as communities, a group out there that's either low income or no income, and perhaps how this work also relates to ourselves that are seeming not to be part of community in this idea, in this concepts, and how we move beyond some kind of innocence, as if we are not complicit in the extractive relationships. And so so how we broaden these the understandings of the work we're doing in trying to integrate nature or rethink the human place in nature. So I'm handing over to Andrés, and his presentation is the topic is focused on eco-engineering and the management and tools of natural habitats, but mostly marine. You're going to be in the marine habitat. Okay, 7 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Michelle, for the general introduction about the concept of natural basic solutions. And I have some slides, and I don't know if I will have or not. I don't know. That could be better. Yeah, thank you. And so, but they asked me if was better if I speak in Spanish or in English, because for my colleagues that they are understanding, they don't have the translation, yes. And so, okay, but I could try to do in Spanglish if you want. And so, yeah, I could try to do some concepts in Spanish too. Ecoingeniería y gestión de las herramientas costeras, herramientas de gestión, incluyendo los hábitats naturales. Es muy importante para mí porque vengo del mundo de la ingeniería y cuando empecé a relacionarme con ecólogos y con biólogos, pues para mí fue un reto aprender conceptos de ecología. So it was a challenge for me just to, when I started to working in the eco-engineering solutions, just to learning about the ecological concepts, that this is very important and how to integrate it from the engineering. But we do the engineering. We simplify the word. We simplify in equations and in the simple models in a small boxes or small things. And so we try to include that in solution. What kind of solutions? If, for example, for infrastructures, and we develop buildings, we develop roads, we develop ports, harbors, and also we develop engineering solution for electricity transition or whatever. But when we are thinking, we will start to rethinking how to learn from the nature, how to learn how they do, how they process the problems, how they recycling the nutrients in general. You know, that is the general idea that I would like to share with all of you in 5 minutes. No, now 4. The next slide, please. And I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. And so, but I would like to quickly present that I am part of the CEMARIN, that is a center of excellence in marine science that is also integrated with the TRAJECTS, but that for me that's important because when we started in CEMARIN, I have around integrated 200 researchers with different backgrounds, and mainly 80% of my researchers in my center, they are biologists. And so, but I'm engineer, and so I'm trying to lead a center with many biologists. And of course, it was a challenge issues to establish a conversations. But at the same time, to say them, okay, I'm coming from physical background, but we need to include the social science because we didn't have many researchers that coming from social science in our discussion. And now we increase, and so, but now we have a couple of researchers that are coming from social science, from economies, and from another backgrounds. And also, we try to develop projects with different funds around the world, and of course, applied in Colombia and in the region of Caribbean, including Panama and also Ecuador, but include these different approaches. Yeah. The first idea that I would like to keep in mind is that we are part of a climate variability and climate change. And what is the phenomena that affected our coastal areas? The phenomena are different scales of variability. For example, the ENSO phenomena or Niño phenomena, or extreme events like a hurricane. Recently, we have seen in the news that extreme events. Entonces, esta idea en español, variabilidad climática, eventos extremos. Los eventos extremos se están exacerbando por la variabilidad climática y el cambio climático. Entonces, estos elementos son importantes, son físicos, son climáticos. Entonces, no podemos aquí solamente hablar de ecología o de sociedad, sin entender cómo está cambiando el planeta físicamente. Y eso requiere ecuaciones. So, it's very important to understand the climate change and how it is the equation that dominate our system, our planetary system. And so, of course, when we move to this concept, and so our how is the service of the natured areas? It means that we are to introduce another concept, but maybe will be coming for all of you, is the ecosystem services. But we need to understand the ecosystem that they offer services, but not for to extract, not for to destroy it. It's just to understand, at least just to understand that this is our common house, the planet, of course. And so that is the basic. If you understand the ecosystem services is the common house that we need. Nosotros entendemos la casa común.
So we understand this as our common house, our common home, and we take care of this. And this is why we need to understand nature-based solutions.
Food or infrastructure or protection or cultural services or different services. And if we move to the coastal areas, and so we identified that different ecosystems. Just to clarify quickly, for example, in the a beach profile, we identify coral reefs, seagrasses, and mangroves. But each of one are connected. And so, but it's not possible to study the ocean areas. It's not possible to study the development of infrastructure, harbors, or extract energy from the ocean, for example, without understand that the area, the local areas. Entonces, están conectados los sistemas costeros, los
So the
corales.
different coastal systems are connected, the seagrass, the mangroves, the coral reefs, and these ecosystems provide the services we were speaking about. So we need to integrate them in a comprehensive manner.
The key, the central part of my presentation. Why eco-engineering or why management tools? It means that originally in the concept or engineering approaches, for example, we have several villages that they are living near to the coast, and they are affected for an extreme events like a hurricane, and the flooding impact the coastal area. And what we thought originally, the engineers, just to solve the problem, we put a barrier, we put a wall, a big wall, just to protect it. You know, we need to dominate the influence of the sea. And so, but when we start to rethinking the topic, and okay, maybe that could be the natural. Could be protect us, but what kind of the natural? Oh, okay, maybe the coral reefs. The coral reefs could to dissipate the waves energy of the extreme event of hurricane. But after that, you will find it and seagrass, and after that, mangroves, and all these three ecosystem protects the people. But if we need to introduce the eco-engineering concept, we need to understand how is the structured. How works this natural structure, the physical properties, the material properties of these kind of structures. And so that is our concept. Our idea is to study the hydrodynamic process. The idea is to study how is the impact, of course, the flooding, how is the impact in the society. And so, but the important is how to involve ecosystems concepts about friction, for example, how to design a restoration process of mangroves, how to design a restoration process of corals. And so, but the engineers we thought about that. And now we are trying to do this connection between eco-engineering. That is the simple idea. And just to finish, and so, yeah, the last 30 seconds, just we start to study how to involve the roughness of the corals, the different kind of species. And so I need to learn how different kind of species and about the mangroves. And so I need to learn how is the behavior of the mangroves. And finally, and so, but that's some examples that we did in Colombia about the energy dissipation for mangroves or energy dissipation in coral reefs. But I would like to finish with this, sorry, this slide. This one, the society, because of course you will say to me, okay, nice ecologists, scientists of the ecology, scientists for engineering, but what's happening with the society? Why the human beings, they living in the territories? And so, but we found it, but we need to build many of the solution with them in both ways. One, how to build the solution is mean that's, for example, we use it, the local experiences, how to learn how to build natural structures and how to develop territories, areas, and how to restore mangroves or corals. And the second way is monitoring, because if you monitoring your house, and so it's better that you inform how to manage. And so that is the management tools, local management tools. And so that is all, the simple ideas, physical variabilities, that's important. Ecological concepts, how to integrate it into engineering perspective, and how to connect it with the solution and with the society. Yeah. Procesos físicos, climáticos, ingeniería conectada.
Physical processes, climatic processes, engineering built into ecology, and engaging communities in the development of solutions and the monitoring thereof.
Thanks, Andrés. I can see you're very passionate and excited. Yeah. I'm going to hand over to
In both languages.
yeah, to Claire. Claire.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
Do you have presentation?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much, Michelle. When I learned about the topic of today's discussion, I was like, it's actually right on time. It's a very great topic because there are so many controversies that are around nature-based solutions. And we could understand that because it's very recent when the United Nations Environment Assembly came up with the official definition of nature-based solutions. Before it was maybe the IUCN version and other versions that people wouldn't agree with. But this brings me to my presentation, kindly. Thank you very much. So some of the controversies that are around nature-based solutions are, for example, valuation of nature-based solutions. How do we do the cost-benefit ratio measurement of these benefits? Because actually nature-based solutions take time to implement. So that is one thing that has the controversies built around that. Another thing is the difference it has with the indigenous knowledge, indigenous practices, and also with the practices that we've had, the current measures like ecosystem-based adaptation. There's so many controversies also around that. How also defying the rights of the indigenous peoples and local communities. Well, I agree so much. I couldn't agree more with Andrés that yes, it's not about destruction. And next slide, kindly. Oh. Yes, thank you very much. So the European Union came up with a very elaborate infographic on nature-based solutions. Maybe it may not be so visible, but yeah, the source is there. And they came up with this infographic so as to characterize nature-based solutions to help people understand. And one of the how nature-based solutions are characterized. Number one is they use natural ecosystem processes. So for example, there is photosynthesis, carbon uptake, buildup of biomass. Those are how we can characterize them. That is one. Another is it has to be aligned with the natural ecosystems. Nature-based solutions do not require significant human intervention. Third is it provides benefits to the biodiversity, such that we do not exploit nature to address societal challenges. Another thing is maintaining natural adaptability. It has to be able to work for the local communities and the local places in which it's being implemented. Another is it has to be appropriate, where locally appropriate, where you have to use the native species. You just don't introduce other species that are not are not local, are not native to the places. And also it has to be multifunctional. It has to bring about different benefits to the society, as it also addresses the societal change challenges. Sorry. So this is a basic, this is a photo that I took when I was doing my research for my thesis in Tana River. This is in Kenya. It's classified under the arid and semi-arid lands in Kenya. So this is in Hola, Tana River County, and this is the community we were working with. We were trying to find the difference there is, because my focus was on agroforestry as a nature-based solutions to help communities improve their livelihoods and also to adapt to climate change. So we were trying to see the difference between farmers who do monocropping or who do crop systems without integrating trees, and we compared them with the farmers who were integrating trees, who were doing agroforestry. And so first of all, climate change, this is a place that is very vulnerable to climate change challenges, because as the community, they may not understand climate change in the word climate change, but they will express it in terms of, okay, there's so much drought, there's prolonged drought in this place, there are floods, a lot of floods in this place, strong winds and extreme temperatures. I'm trying to rush through there because of time, extreme temperatures. So the government, the local government has established irrigation schemes so that the farmers are able to produce food because, as we can see, it's a dry area. They depend on water for irrigation. So they have irrigation schemes where they plant their crops. So we tried to compare the farmers who were doing monocropping, as I said, and those who were doing agroforestry systems. And definitely in the end of our study, we tried to characterize the different, the different agroforestry systems, where we focus more on the nature of the components, the agri-silvicultural, the silvopastoral, and agro-silvopastoral. So the first, just give me a second. The first agri-silvicultural practice, the agri-silviculture practice is the trees with the crops. Then we have the silvopastoral, which is the trees with the trees with pasture, and then we have the agri-silvicultural, which is the trees, crops, and livestock. So that community is a nomad community that they keep livestock. It's a very big thing. They're nomad. They're also pastoralists. They keep livestock, and in their culture, keeping a lot of livestock is very close to their heart. So even the interventions of trying to destock by the government has not really bore much fruit. So some of the challenges like drought, I remember one of the women in one of the group discussions was telling us how she had to, her neighbor, when the drought came, all the livestock died. And it's something that's usually even in global news, all the livestock died. So he decided to commit suicide because this was all he had depended on. This is all his life. This is their way of life. So it was a very sad story when we had to hear this. So when she told us about that, and we tried to think, hasn't the government set in place things to help the community, measures to help the community adapt to such challenges? And they were like, yes, they have. But the problem is this is culture that is already bred inside the people. They cannot, if you take away their livestock, they do not have a lifestyle. So what we found out is that most of the farmers in the place, they practiced the agri-silviculture and agro-silvipastoral, because the second one, the silvopastoral systems, because they are nomads, so they barely plant trees. They'll be moving from place to place. They cannot stay in one place and plant trees. So as I wrap up, yeah. As I wrap up, we know very well the benefits of trees. We know very well the benefits of agroforestry, which is also part of a nature-based solution. So under the productive function, the protection function, if you want to, I'll share the slide with you, but you can read the benefits from that slide. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks. And now we're moving over to Michela. Thanks. Thank you.
So basically, my presentation in these 5 minutes is focused, or will be focused on the experience we have in terms of community microhydro projects in the Dominican Republic, and how these initiatives include nature-based solutions. Because the discussion about nature-based solution is in a certain sense the same about any instrument we can adopt to solve the environmental crisis we face today. And if we consider, if we start from this perspective, basically the conclusion we reach is that we need to adapt this instrument to the specific context and basically to territory. So basically, our experience try to contribute to the solution of the environmental crisis, where we as human beings have altered dynamics that the Earth developed in more than 4,500 years in the last fraction of this day of 24 hours as a metaphor of this long history of the Earth. So basically, the point we are now is really near to this breaking point where our natural system, our planet, has the probability to evolve to another equilibrium state where conditions will be very different. And so the what is in this under discussion today is our possibility to survive to ourselves, because the Earth has the ability to recover from any more critical solution. And so this is what we see in our environment in terms of degradation when our actions are not in line with natural dynamics. So in this environment, we have to adopt solutions which include nature-based solutions as well. And from this point of view, the microhydro system in the Dominican Republic turned into a model of a multi-stakeholder alliance where the center of the action is local community. We start from responding to local communities' need, and we assume the role of catalyzing the action of different stakeholders towards sustainable development, adopting solutions which are in harmony with the characteristic of the environment. And these are the specific aspects which are related to microhydro generation, community microhydro generation in the field of nature-based solution, because microhydro systems turn into an integral solution where, together with the access to electricity, local communities develop abilities to water regulation, basically watershed management that imply water regulation, water quality, improvement of sediment control, and also socio-environmental and economic benefits. So the social aspects you were speaking about is included in this line of intervention. And obviously, there is also a contribution to a global problem, because, well, there is a local action that has environmental global impacts in terms of specifically climate change mitigation, because we contribute to CO2 absorption and also avoiding emissions connecting to electricity generation. And the adaptation to territorial characteristics is expressed in this slide, where we can see the typical climate of the Dominican Republic, which is a very diverse country due to topographic aspects. And obviously the mountain areas are the ones we impact in terms of microhydro systems. And why is it an integral intervention? Because to the projects we associate forestry conservation and watershed management, decentralized generation in terms of electricity, energy efficiency, productive use of energy, and there is also an important social component, because we work towards local empowerment, which finally guarantees guarantees sustainability of the initiatives. And this obviously, we do not work alone, but we have structured a huge network of alliances where public sector, international cooperation, civil society, and community-based organization work together to reach this common objective. And the result and the impacts are synthesized just in the last minutes of my intervention. At the moment, 48 microhydro systems are working in the country and one is working in Haiti. I consider that the case of Hispaniola Island is really particular because I think it's the only island in the world which have two different countries, because we have other islands that are shared by two or more countries, but the Hispaniola Islands has two countries which are completely included in the island. And so it's a case, there is a social and political binational context, very particular, very peculiar. And even though there are huge diversity between the Asian nationality and the Asian nation and the Dominican nation. And this system has proved to be effective also in Haiti. We have a microhydro system that has been working since 2015 in the Haitian border in a local community here. And in terms of population, we have over 5,000 households and 20,000 people who have access to electricity through these systems. And these are more but in terms of nature-based solution, thanks to these systems, over 70 kilometers square of land are restored and or conserved under community-based management. And there are also significant cooperation, South-South cooperation with Haiti, Venezuela, and Mexico we are working with. So just to conclude, well, this is another initiative that is connected to microhydro generation. What I want to stress is that we need to we need to integrate different aspects, and we need to share common focus on common objectives behind, let's say, going farther than our diversities. And this applies not only at an individual and organizational point of view, but also from a territorial point of view. We have the possibility to focus on what we need to reach and how we catalyze processes. And so in this sense, we have to recover the importance of ethics, like Eduardo said this morning, and also time. We have to become aware about the importance of time to reach sustainability and to make process sustainable.
Thanks, Michela.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thanks. And now Glynis will speak about her experience and lessons from South Africa and Botswana.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay,
great.
on nature-based solutions.
You
Great.
can- Yeah,
Okay,
thank
go.
you. You can put the slides up, please. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm talking about a project which is focusing Oh, sorry, there we go. Okay, so this is, as I introduced the project, towards equitable and sustainable nature-based solutions. Okay, so this project, the core focus is on equity. So understanding from the local level what people experience on the ground. So that's basically what can we learn from the communities? How do they experience nature-based solution interventions? So just to give it a bit of a different perspective. So this, when I say nature-based solution interventions, for example, like alien clearing, removing alien clearing, alien clearing, removing invasive plants from the landscape, spring rehabilitation, the management of livestock in rangeland areas. So there's particular nature-based solution activities that happen in this landscape where communities are involved. So what happens to those communities? So let me just take a step back. So when we think about, okay, so what I'm going to do is actually to just share some examples from you, to share examples with you. This is, we developed a storybook on basically real life encounters, but we fictionalized the examples that happened on the ground just to protect people and for anonymity, but be able to share some of the real stories of what happens with communities. And when we think about, and also just to say, this is that this is also it's a collaboration between researchers and practitioners from all over Southern Africa, and it's their reflections and their experiences too, together with the communities. Okay. So what is interesting is that just at the start, this data comes from a systematic review of nature-based solutions across Southern Africa. And typically when interventions are implemented in a landscape, there's the intention that people actually benefit from the project. That is, so there's that the people consider it, but what the data actually reveals is that even though that basically there's very inequitable, basically there's very little benefits that get given to communities. So even though they're considered, so we need to look at why this is happening on the ground. What in the circumstances, in the design and the implementation, the planning of these projects, where are we failing to actually recognize where people and the ecosystem can actually function together? So just to define the way that we define social equity, we're looking at it in a sense that it's more for those that need more relative to others. I think we're familiar with inequity on our different continents, particularly in South Africa and also too in South America. So what I'll do is just share some examples. So these, I've worked on the ground with communities, particularly in Mzimvubu in the catchment, Eastern Cape catchment, and in Botswana. So the important side is, what I'd like to do is just share some of what has happened. So what are the realities? So this, for example, is a project in the Eastern Cape. Yeah, thank you. Project in the Eastern Cape that involved, it was set up to involve multiple stakeholders, but also allowed for that, what basically encompassed and embraced the community. And in the vision, equity was acknowledged. So that was incorporated. And this project was an interesting one because it lasted for 8 years. Just to pull back, it was funded, there were academics involved, local communities, but as well as national governance. So what happened in this project is that, as Michela pointed out, there were a variety of nature-based solution activities, and there were a lot of learning, a lot of lessons learned along the way. For example, about translation and making information accessible to the communities, and what the communication from the scientists and the engineers that were involved through to the actual communities collecting sediment samples in the river. So that was really important, is the communication flow between these, that came out as really core. Another aspect that came out from the project, and it lasted for 8 years, and people were employed and trained. There were a lot of workshops to develop knowledge, to develop the project. And what was interesting is, from the community side, how did they benefit? Really interesting result is they really learned something. They've got knowledge and they understand their rangelands alongside income and employment in the system. Now, what happened in this project is that people became disillusioned because of the lack of finances. So there were constant financial interruptions in the project. So people would lose their motivation to, okay, now we have to start cutting trees again because we've now got the money to do it. And so there was that sort of continuation, and the sort of interruption in the project disrupted the community. Okay, so that's just to give you one example. Okay, can you go to the next one? Okay, this is an example. In South Africa, we have a civil society project, which is expanded program, which is developed for employment to employ the local community. So people really benefit from this. But once again, people benefit because around those working relationships, people develop a community and a kinship and a support network, which is really important alongside income and employment. But what happens is, once again, the financial side lets them down, and the continuation of the project, it's just there's a lot of promises and a lot of that's where people get let down. And the question is, so these are projects that are managed by national governments. How do we actually maintain them so that communities can actually benefit in the long term? Okay, so there's questions around that. Okay, the next project is situated in Botswana. Now, this is a really interesting 1 minute. Okay, I'm almost finished. Okay, thank you. This is a really interesting project because it's about cattle, which is at the heart of the African. Our cattle to most cultures in Africa is it's their assets, and it means wealth to people. And this was a project came in working with the local community and said, the project was developed to protect lions. So there was conflict between the people and the lions because people were basically killing the lions because the lions were eating their livestock. So a combination of human wildlife conflict in this landscape. So a project came in and said, we'll manage your livestock if you give us your livestock and pool the livestock into these large herds. And there were a lot of lessons learned in the process. There was high mortality because of the pooling of livestock. But at the same time, it allowed the communities to actually do other things like grow vegetables and actually do other jobs in the area. So, and allowed people to go to school because a lot of the herders are young, and it allowed them to get an education. But a part of this learning, a lesson from this project is that there are benefits from the community, but what happened, and the community is benefiting, but once again, there wasn't enough funding. Okay, so there was basically the donors need to be better informed about the local community circumstances because the communities were being impacted on the ground by losing their cattle, which is very important to them. Okay. All right, so I'll end on this question. So I've given you a couple of ground examples from South Africa and Botswana. The question I have is, how can we ensure social equity and that people actually benefit from these projects? And that how do we actually ensure the sustainability of them? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Camilla says we only have till 11 because tea is at 11. So, but maybe we can go a few minutes, like 3 minutes or 5 minutes over. Let's. I mean, if we're heading for coffee, but yeah. So, I mean, if this thing ends, that ends. But we're still all in the room. Yeah. Okay. I can see consensus here. So let's not feel too pressured. So thank you so much. And I just have one question, and before I open it up to the audience, and listening to all your inputs, and yeah, maybe it's a bit of a tricky question, and I'm wondering if I'm listening to Claire and I hear agroforestry. I'm listening to Andrés and I see eco-engineering and how engineers are now thinking about including ecosystems systems rather than just building blocks and been more concrete. And when I listen to Michela, I'm hearing about local micro energy systems that's offering access to energy, and it's also working with ecosystems and understanding hydro systems. And if I'm listening to Glynis, Glynis is speaking about some of the concerns around bringing in these ideas of nature-based solutions. I saw a question there on like, what's a catchment? When someone perhaps understands the river systems, and often in these spaces of the UN and the IUCN and government, we come up with these terms where that's difficult for communities to interpret. So I'm wondering if it's necessary to call a lot of the the approaches nature-based solutions, and if you could think about another way to describe the work that you're doing, what would it be? And so I'm just opening that question.
Thanks, Michelle. So what immediately comes to mind here is actually nature, and in the literature, nature-based solutions it's been a contested term, and people often refer to it as an umbrella term, but I think we've been doing it all along. It's not new. We've been working in these ecological systems, trying to understand them for a very long time, and people have always been a part of these landscapes, and the indigenous communities have always been managing these landscapes. So I don't feel that it's an umbrella term. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. When we have started, a good question, good point. When we have started to work in natural basis solution, and also I found it a hybrid natural basis solution, because we are coming from engineering. It means that there is some time when we mix natural concepts with engineering traditionally. But also I found another term, that is community-based solutions. And so community-based solution, it means that I need to work with the community, or together, not I put this is my solution and this is my idea. That's I need to start to establish common ideas, And so I think that could be better if we move to something like will really include the community of the society in the term of the solutions, maybe, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I perfectly agree with both of you, in the sense that a nature-based solution, as I told before, is, as I said before, is just an instrument. But I think we must take it in a rigid way, because we as human beings are accustomed to, are used to categorizing things in a very rigid way, and we need to use the instrument in a way that is useful for the final objective we want to reach. So basically, in our intervention, I think that the common element is the integrality and of the integration of the process in a way that are adapted to local people and to local environment, and are action that try to these actions try to empower people and to give people alternatives that let them to become aware of the importance of protecting nature, because they obtain sustainable livelihoods from the use of these natural resources. So it's the most important concept is integrality of intervention.
Thank you very much. I don't want to say I disagree, but I can say I agree, but I want to add an aspect to what my fellow panelists said. If we go back to the definition given by the United Nations Environment Assembly, actions to protect, conserve, restore, sustainably use, and manage natural and modified ecosystems in the bid to address socio-economic and environmental challenges effectively and adaptively while providing ecosystem services, human well-being, benefiting biodiversity, and building resilience. Now, if I use the characterization given by the EU, I will just use one, which is provides benefit to biodiversity. So if we talk about whatever solution you have, if you want to call it nature-based, you know, the policy document on the assessment on climate change mitigation that the EU did classifies all the nature-based solutions in different landscapes. So when it talks about providing benefits to biodiversity, things like monoculture, we cannot call that nature-based solutions. Things like bioenergy with carbon capture, we cannot call that nature-based solutions because it has to be in line also with the ecosystem services.
Okay, thank you. So I have some questions here, and I would have wanted to open up to the floor, but let me do these questions. I'm going to have a colleague read the Spanish one, so I'm just. Oh, is it in English? It's below. Oh, thanks. Is that okay? I thought it was a separate question. Okay, thanks. Okay, we sorted. So there's a question for Glynis. Can you please tell us about how you came up with this idea of fictionalized people for the protection, and how you for their protection and how you put that into practice? And there's a question that's open to all of you, an important question: how the ecology of local knowledges, how can this be included in these processes and practices around these so-called nature-based solution projects? Okay, and there's a last one for Michela. Oops, so Michela, what is the new view? Sorry, I'm not the new. Sorry, can you read this question because I can't read your handwriting? Okay.
Michela, what is the new view on appropriation that hydroelectric energy production brings in Republic Dominicana, taking into account they have been stigmatized?
Okay. So go for it. So maybe Glynis, you
I
go
can
first.
start, yeah. Okay, so basically what we wanted to do from a team perspective, the team wanted to develop a product that was useful. So we didn't want to only write a scientific publication from our work. That's expected. What we wanted to do was make a tool that was useful to other stakeholders and everyone who was involved in the nature-based solution, or so that we could spread ground stories about what really happens. So what we had to do was fictionalize. These stories are real accounts of case studies, but we fictionalize them just to be able to share it to a broader audience so that people can access it, and not only academics, but go at the government level, but also at the community level. So the community would appreciate those books too. And it's a way of giving back the knowledge that's collected in research. So if that answers your questions, yeah. Okay, there we go. Next.
Okay, so about the general question on how to really involve the communities into the solutions. Yeah, the traditional knowledge, the knowledge, exactly. And so, but I think that the first point is that when we go to thinking when you are to understanding the physical process and ecological process, and of course we need to understand the social relation with the systems, the integrated systems, before to thinking in the solutions. And so, but part of this local knowledge that they have is totally, definitely just for to define the solutions. And for example, just to explain, we are working in the ocean area and coastal areas with communities, and about for fisheries, for example, just with fishermen. But we go to thinking that we need to develop a new technology, more efficient or more local or whatever. But if we don't understand the cycles or fisheries, and so, but they know very well, or is the times and better, where is the local area where they fished. And so even we have some models, ecological models or some hydrodynamic model, but they know exactly better than us with the models. And so that is important. Just to explain, that's one example of this local knowledge, how important it could be to include in the equation of the solutions. That's it.
Well, this is an important point also in micro hydro projects. And yes, hydropower generation is a controversial issue because we know all the environmental and social impacts associated to huge hydropower projects. But in the case of micro hydro projects, they are local adapted systems. So basically there is a very low environmental impact. We can't say that there isn't any impact, because obviously any human intervention in the environment has some externality. But we can say that the environmental impact is limited to a short part of the stream, of the river, which is exploited, which is used, and basically not the entire flow of the river is taken. So there is the construction of little dams, and in this way, the intervened part of the river is only slightly impacted. And then the same water is delivered to the same river at maximum 2 kilometers in the bottom part of the river. So basically that's the from an environmental point of view. But if we consider the integrality of the intervention, the positive environmental impacts that are associated with these systems are higher, because we contributed to the conservation of the upper part of the basin, and this contributes also to the improvement of river flow. And the social impact is bigger, is also important, because the local community gets involved in the construction of the system since the first phase, since the study. And this is a learning by doing process, which contributes to the sustainability of the system, because at the end of the process, community establishes its own administrative system, and they learn how to manage money and funds. So for this reason, I was speaking about the integrality of the intervention.
Okay, how we include indigenous knowledge, right? Yeah, so I'd give an example with the work that we did, the study that we did in the focus group discussions with the community. We had 3 focus group discussions where we'd call different farmers from different regions to converge in one place, and then we'd try to get information from them. So it turned out, the focus group discussion turned out to be more like a marketing scheme for the farmers in some way, because they started bringing in their interest and talking about how, one farmer was telling the other, if you want to cure diabetes, this is the tree you should take. You take that bark, boil it like this, add the other bark from the other tree, and such things. So it was a very interesting focus group discussion. And when we have such information, it's very easy for us. When we have such local knowledge, it's easy for the government to put, let's say, they call it barazas. Barazas usually happen under trees. So it's information being dissipated within the locals. So that is one way in which we can integrate indigenous knowledge.
Because you spoke on communities, I've got 2 more questions. Okay. So so we have these are again very big questions. They're not going to be answered but if you can just give whoever feels called to. So this is a question on how your projects take into account the historical and political realities of the context and how do you think about integrating political change and social and ecological change, yeah, in those contexts? And this, if you don't know, then what are the barriers to including political change and in the intentions of your work? And there's another question, but maybe in conclusion, I could also give a go on this question. What is the link between ecosystems and just energy transitions? But no, I think I'll respond to that in my I just concluding to the remarks. Okay, thanks. Who's gonna go?
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay, great.
Okay, in terms of how do you incorporate or acknowledge the social and historical, political circumstances when you're working with communities? So that's a very it's an intense question, but it's a very real question. So I'll give you an example from the field in Namibia. Yeah, where the actual, what you do in social science research is you have a term called positionality. You have to understand where you position yourself in the community. Okay, so that's quite important, but at the same time, that's important. So you understand the community that you're working with. You try as much as you can to understand that, and then you also have to think about the questions that you're asking your communities. The questions that it's about the questions, and that's very important when you're working with people. And I think that because that can impact the answers that you get. Okay, so I can give you, okay, I'll give you a very real example. So I was working in Namibia on the border of then basically on the border. So basically South Africa used to politically administrate Namibia, and I was a South African doing research with a group of people that were militarized, so basically used in the military against their own country. So that was a very difficult circumstance to be in, extremely complex. And some people didn't want to talk to me, and understandably so. But at the same time, so that was acknowledged in the research. But this research was actually about understanding fire and understanding the research was driven by what do people understand by it? How do they use it? And then that was incorporated into the research. What at the end of the day, the conclusion, okay, right. The conclusion of the research is that the social and political history really influenced the fire dynamics, and because it resulted in the loss of traditional knowledge, the loss of historical practices, and the government ended up using it came full circle because the government actually adopted what the community's been doing all along. So there was positive benefits and there was consensus that came from that research. That's one example I can give to you involving the social and political history. Okay.
Okay. Just one word. My answer to that question would be in one word, transdisciplinarity. If we involve all the actors in each and every place, be it the government, the locals, the NGOs, all those actors, the private sector, then it will be easy for us to initiate change, because the historical part of it, the locals will tell you this, the government will tell you this, the NGOs also another story. So once we have all these actors on the table, then it's easy for us to bring transformation in our projects.
Yes, in 2 words. First of all, the respect of community reach, in the sense that every group of people, any group of people has its own way of facing different situations. So basically, we have to adapt to their rhythm. And the second part is agreeing with Claire regarding the importance of generate these alliances and doing things in a way that all the stakeholders in the society can assume their own role. And from this point of view, as an experience from the Dominican Republic, through our work, we have obtained that the national government, and so the Dominican state, recognized the microhydro systems as an effective solution for electrification of rural areas. And they have adopted the priority of community rights in the use of local water sources when there is a conflict between the community and a private stakeholder who wants to make use of the water sources. So this is an example of how, with this work, is it possible to have a political incidence in a country.
Yeah, just to close, just to complement the other. And so there is the only change is that we are nothing is fixed. We are in permanent changes. That is first. And so the cycle of management starts in one point, and every cycle we should to learn from the past. It means that the position of our countries or our territories, we should learn from the last political actions and policies too. That is important. And the scales, as the national scales is different to the regional and local scales. And we should to document all the history in order to learn about the local actions and national policies, where to keep. And finally, open data and communications of the open data. This is definitely to take better decisions and learn from the past.
Okay, thank you all for these rich inputs. And so I just wanted to make a comment on the relationship between ecosystems and energy transitions. And I think it's a very important relationship, as the focus on many of renewable energies is considering energy from the sun, energy from the wind, energy from the waters. And we must be careful not to fall into and continue the logic of that nature is there free for those humans that can afford to pay for those services. And that the focus on energy transitions, for me, it's essential to bring in the understanding of knowledges, of indigenous knowledges that understand cycles. And a lot of the work in our energy transitions must be the restoration of the carbon cycle. And so when Edgardo was speaking about agrarian reform, to have diverse soil is going to be very critical to absorb the tons of carbon dioxide. And so the conversation for me must be for us to us and many of the scientists and all those people in the IPCC to not be stuck in the techno-scientific solutions that seems to be emerging in the energy transitions. So I guess just to close, and this is, for the broader discussion on nature-based solutions, that there needs to be some caution that this doesn't become another top-down approach. When you gave the EU definition, my hair, a few gray hairs just added to my, and that when Wangui spoke about coloniality, and I think of Walter Magnolia that says coloniality isn't over, it's all over. And then, so I want to leave with just some caution from Vandana Shiva on the white man's burden concept. And she says that this is the relationship of superiority, responsibility for the future of the earth, and control over people's knowledges and cultures. And she cautions us about this kind of paradoxical consequence of the white man's burden, is that the earth and other peoples now carry new burdens in the form of environmental destruction that created the very poverty and dispossession. So the I want to say the economic systems of internal growth and profit and extraction continues in the global system. And so, yeah, so we must be wary, yeah, not to kind of work through these local solutions without looking at the systems of globalization and extraction and profit making that have caused many of these challenges and problems in the first place. So yes, on that note, I want to thank you all, and yeah, all the best with your projects. Thanks.
Thank you.